everybody. Thanks for joining me. I'm Diane Helbig, and today I'm going to be talking with you about how to use discovery to maximize sales. So we're going to cover why discovery, how to use discovery in networking, prospecting, selling, and I think you will see how this works for you in your business moving forward. So, why discovery? Well, listen, discovery is a mindset. It's not salesy because you're putting your focus on others. You're not in search of a client. That's not the discovery that you're doing. And the impact of it is that it's easier to do. It's more engaging. You have better relationships with people. You build better relationships with people. And possibly equally important, it could be more important, is that it's what your prospects prefer. It's what the people who you are engaging with prefer. They would rather that you were engaging in conversation than you were showing up as a salesperson. So let's see if we can give that a shot by going through what we're really talking about. So let's talk about networking. So when you're networking, it's not about discovering who you can gain as a client. So too many people approach networking events and platforms with a goal of selling. And besides the fact that people really dislike obvious salespeople, I submit your focus is in the wrong place. You'll miss out on uncovering valuable relationships, and sales is more than gaining customers. It includes colleagues, referral partners, resources. So when you are networking with an eye toward discovery, you are actually trying to figure out who is there, how they fit into your orbit, if they fit into your orbit, and what, who you want to continue to engage with. So it really is the best way to show up when you're networking so that you can truly build meaningful business relationships. Now, when you're networking online, remember, you aren't selling. You're building relationships with people. Those relationships will provide you with opportunities to gain warm introductions to your prospects, at which point you can engage in conversations with them, but you're not selling. So your discovery when you're networking online is who, once again, do you want to continue to engage with and build relationships with, so that when you are then doing your prospecting research, you can identify who's connected to the people, companies that you want to be talking to, and then you can get an introduction to them because you've built the relationship, you've built the trust, it's all good. Now, how about when you're networking in person? Well, remember, once again, you aren't selling. Just like networking online, your goal is to build relationships and, frankly, a toolbox of resources. Because one of the ways that you increase your value with others is when you have resources that you have gotten to know, that you have gotten to trust, that you believe in the way that they do business. You've really, gotten to that place where you think they're good at what they do, they deliver, they're authentic, they're genuine, they have integrity, all of those things. Then when you hear people, when you're just using discovery and you hear people talking about the things that they need, you can offer a resource. You can offer and introduce them to the resource. You can offer just to, give them the name and the contact information of the resource. So seek to learn and listen more than you speak, because that's how you're going to be able to identify who really is worth adding to your toolbox, and just as important, who isn't. Like, this is how we find out who really says they're good, but isn't necessarily. Okay. And now let's talk about prospecting. So the first thing is that every member of your prospect pool is not a potential client. So it's important to learn as much as you can about your prospects before you ever reach out to them. Okay. And there is so much to learn. So what is going on with them right now? Who are the significant players? Have they been in the news lately? Do you know anyone who could provide you with a warm introduction? That is the discovery mission that you should be on. And part of the reason is because the more you know about them, the more you will have to talk to them about and connect with them around when you actually do reach out. So you're also going to be able to identify which members of the prospect pool you should even bother reaching out to, because just because they might look like a prospect, they're in your target market, doesn't mean that they actually are. And the sales meeting. So for me, selling is what happens when you're in the sales meeting with the prospect. All right. Now, when you are in that meeting, your goal is to learn not to tell. And this is critically important. Your focus has to be on asking enough of the right questions so you can determine whether you can help them and whether you want to. Okay. So 2 key questions. So once again, I'm going to emphasize that you should be listening more than you're talking when you are with a prospect. Because when you ask meaningful questions, you will discover then what you should be telling them, what you should share with them, and it will be relevant to them so they will actually hear it. So what questions are you asking? And how are you asking them? Oftentimes, we only ask questions around the situation and we ignore learning about process, values, experience, who they really are. So yeah, of course, we should be asking questions about the situation. So what is the need? What's the goal? There are other questions we can and should ask to get a feel for who the prospect is, because the questions that you ask around the situation are specific to you and your industry and your organization and your prospects and what you offer. There are all these other questions as well. And we want to remember that we're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing us, because we're trying to identify, are they a good fit for us? Are we a good fit for them? Will it be a good relationship? We don't want to just take any business, because even though that's revenue, it's not necessarily going to be profitable business. So in the long run, it's not going to do us much good. So one example is there's value in knowing the decision-making process. So now notice I didn't say who the decision maker is, because no one likes that question. So you could ask a question like, would you mind sharing with me your decision-making process? Or you can say, would you be open to sharing how you will be making this decision? Those questions, they're polite, they're respectful, they're non-threatening. You want to determine if you are the right resource for them. And you also want to know if they're the decision maker, but you can't ask that outright. So when you ask what's your decision-making process, they're going to tell you, well, now you have an idea about what is, really going on here. What is happening with this company? How do they make decisions? What matters to them? What's the process they're going to go through? And the more information you have, the better you are going to be able to make decisions. Another question that's really important is around budget, and no one likes to ask the budget question because the prospects don't like answering it, but you gotta know. So there's a couple of ways you can go about this. You can ask, have you considered a budget for this? It's a yes or no question. You're not asking them what the budget is. You just want to get an idea if they've actually thought about it. If you ask them if they've ever done business with a company like yours before, if they say yes, then there's a good chance they have a number in mind because they've spent money on this before. And so you can ask, would you be open to sharing with me what your investment was, or what your monthly spend was, or annual spend. It depends on your industry, depends on, what's the uniqueness of that that's going to determine how you ask that question. But you still need to be asking it. Okay. So if they don't want to give you an answer, you have to have the conversation. You have to say to them, okay, I hear you. You're not the first person who's felt uncomfortable having this conversation. Would you mind sharing with me what it is about this question that makes you not want to answer it? Because you've got a ceiling and we have a floor, and I want to make sure I'm not wasting your time, going through all of this process just to identify that your ceiling is lower than we're going to be able to really help you. So, help me understand what's actually going on there. Because see, the more you ask politely, the more you're going to be talking with them, the more you're going to be getting to know them. You're going to understand where they're coming from, what worries them, what makes them uncomfortable. But they're also going to hear your professionalism. They're going to hear that you respect them enough that you don't want to waste their time, and that you're having this conversation. If you have ever had a sales meeting where you asked the budget question, they didn't answer it, you didn't push on it, you moved on, you went through every other question, then you gave them a proposal, and all of a sudden you couldn't get them on the phone, they needed to think about it, they told you, you were out of the ballpark. That didn't need to happen. You both should be walking down the same road. It's about trust. It's about a relationship. And the best way to have a good relationship is to be able to speak openly, honestly, and completely with them. So you got to be able to have the conversation. And notice, I had asked before, what questions are you asking and how are you asking them? Because there's a way to ask that is more polite and respectful. You probably want to ask them about their timeline, their sense of urgency. What are their expectations? What does success look like? How do they problem solve? How do they prefer to communicate? You can see there are so many questions that are valuable for you to know the answer to, because it's going to give you an idea of what that relationship's going to look like moving forward, that you just have to buckle up and you're going to have to ask them. And if they won't answer them, you're going to have to ask them why. Okay. All right. And I know you can do it. So I think you can see that, hopefully you can see that when you go through this discovery exercise, you can determine whether you can help them, because you're asking all these questions, you're finding out all the answers, you're checking off all the boxes of, is this a fit? But the other question is whether you want to help them. And those two decisions are equally important. If you decide you can help them and you want to move forward, with them, you repeat back to them what you think you heard while you're explaining how you can help. So you're connecting dots, right? But the whole way around, you are helping them see how your solution helps solve their problem. And that's how you ensure that they're coming along with you, right? Toward a natural conclusion of buying from you, because everything you're telling them connects to everything they've told you. So, pretty important discovery, right? It really, it's valuable throughout the sales process. Keeps you focused, keeps you intentional, keeps you present, keeps you away from bad relationships and clients. I know it's a different mindset and it takes some practice, and that's okay. The results are well worth the effort. So, a whole lot of information. I want to, thank you for tuning into this, spending some time with me. If you've got questions, I would love to answer them. You can just visit talkwithdiane.com, schedule a complimentary 30-minute phone consult. You can feel free to pick up my book, Succeed Without Selling, on Amazon or wherever books are sold. This information that I've shared with you today is in that book, along with a whole lot of other information about how to be successful with selling. So thank you. enjoy the rest of the event, and look forward to speaking with you soon.